Hello and greetings to all that are attending the International Public Employment Services Symposium. My name is Elaine Lim, and I head up the ASEAN Talent Development Team at Ernst & Young, or EY for short. I love my work. I love the work that I do, and I often say to the people I meet that my work is my hobby, and my hobby is my work. However, this wasn't always the case. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to move to another country to live, but there I hit rock bottom. Having left a really interesting job in Malaysia, here I was in a foreign country with no income to pay my bills. Thankfully, a good friend introduced me to an opportunity in a company called Hewlett-Packard, or HP as all of you know it. It was an entry-level analyst role where I had to work with millions and millions of Excel files. And being the non-number person that I am, this was probably the most stressful situation I had found myself in for many years. The role required that I calculated accurately millions of dollars worth of sales commission for printer and toner rebates to be paid to vendors that were selling these ink and toner cartridges for HP. I very quickly learned that it was a sink or swim situation. If I wanted my family to eat, I had to choose to swim. So I told myself, Elaine, this is an opportunity for you to learn new skills. Now today, many of us find ourselves in a similar sink or swim situation, be it that your lives have been disrupted by COVID, by wild weather, or even by the future of work. Some of the people in the call or people you know will graduate from universities knowing that their skills are already irrelevant. Some will actually graduate with the right skills, but find that they need to struggle to compete for the very few job opportunities out there. And some of us who are already in the workforce will now need to think about when will be the day when my job will be taken away by a robot or automation or a shared service center. So for the next 40 minutes, I thought I will share with you how important mindset is as we continue to live out our days and face disruption one after the other. Mindset is important, but I also want to share one effective strategy, yes, just one effective strategy with you to help you stay afloat in these interesting times. Now, why am I talking about this? In October 2020, the World Economic Forum states that by 2025, 85 million jobs will be displaced. But guess what? 97 million will be created in turn. So what does this mean for all of us? It means that we need to now reinvent the way we work. In that article, which some of you might have already read, they also go on to list the top 10 skills needed for the future of work, which is, by the way, in 4 years' time, 2025. The skills or the 10 skills can be broadly grouped into 4 big buckets, and they are, firstly, problem solving. So all sorts of problem solving skills will become valuable. For example, if you've done a course in design thinking, good for you. Self-management, our ability to be resilient, to be curious, to be agile and adaptable. The use of technology, either you're a super user and know how to make your own videos and so on and so forth, or you're part of the app development community. Your skills will be relevant. And of course, finally, who can do anything without having to team better, work with people, particularly in today's virtual environment that we find ourselves in. So what does it mean to all of us? It shows that at some point, whether you like it or not, you will be hit by change, like a tsunami. And then it is time for you to ask yourself whether you will sink or swim. So let's have a look at some examples of great swimmers in our community today. Last year, during the start of the MCO, the founder of Paneerwala, Shubhashini, lost her job. At that point, she decided she needed to do something different. It was a choice she made to turn a hobby into a viable business. Now, if you look across you, there are many such heartwarming stories, and some of them are listed on this slide today. The commonality between all of them is the fact that they chose to learn how to swim and not sink. And that is such a valuable skill in today's disruptive environment. So the choice, ladies and gentlemen, the choice to swim has got to do with mindset. And mindset matters. So if you plan to make the best of your current situation, it starts with how you see yourself. It starts with how you think, whether it is a challenge or a terrible problem, whether it's an issue or an opportunity for you to learn a new skill, whether this is total failure or just another chance for you to start all over again. And this brings us to the topic of today, a growth mindset. One of the most important enablers in being at our best in any situation we find ourselves in is being able to adapt and to be able to adapt to the concept of a growth mindset. Now, please don't get me wrong. This is not some latest fashion trend or latest leadership development trend that I'm introducing to you. It is not something that we recently discovered. In fact, there is 30 years of research around this particular topic. And the founder initially, Dr. Carol Dweck, did studies for children at schools. She was curious to find out what was it that was different about the kids that did well and were not nervous and anxious during exams versus the kids that were actually really, really smart, but just could not do exams that well. Now, the work that was done around children was extended to adult development learning by a lady called Dr. Heidi Grant, who studied under Dr. Carol Dweck. Heidi Grant is currently part of our leadership development team in EY. So in this section, I'm going to share with you some of the research that has been done around the growth mindset, its definition, what it is and isn't, maybe dispel some myths around the growth mindset topic itself, and why you should care about it in the first place. Now, a word of caution here. While I was studying this topic, I actually learned that every one of us is on a different journey. There is no frequently asked questions listing that you can refer to, and I am not in the position to give you a manual or an operations manual or a fixed methodology that you can refer to. Because as individuals, there's always something that we can do for ourselves and the people around us, but that something differs from person to person to person. So in adopting the growth mindset, as I share the theories with you, please own it. Please own your own journey. Please make sure you apply the things that make sense to you. So the choice is yours. Now, the best way for me to explain the growth mindset is really to help you understand what it isn't. So I wanted to start this section by covering off the concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So let's start with the fixed mindset. Now, when you approach situations with a fixed mindset, there are three things that are happening to you, as you can see on this slide here. Firstly, you will be trying very hard to prove your ability. You want to demonstrate that you're smart and you have the skills that is needed. And of course, finally, because you keep comparing yourself to others, you want to be better than other people. When our focus is fixed, you're saying to yourself that my work is the evidence of my ability, my intelligence, and my capabilities. And you know what? Sometimes this is absolutely important and needed. For example, when you're new at a job, You do need to prove that you can be trusted and that you are capable before your team will even allow you to work on a project with them. Or this is also important when you're trying to get into an Ivy League MBA program, right? You need to have the grades and the smarts and the intelligence to get accepted. However, there are some negative consequences, particularly when this is applied to overcoming challenges. Because people that spend a lot of time having a fixed mindset are generally in the play not to lose zone. I must win all the time. And this doesn't always help you to be at your best. Now, if you think of a challenge that you're currently facing now, got one? I will share with you. In my case, back to my story. If I had been stuck in a fixed mindset, I think my kids would have starved to death while I tried really hard to find a manager job, a manager role to prove that I can, to prove that I had the experience, to prove that I had the skills. But actually, I didn't have any local experience at that point. So in that situation, not a great place to be. The other issue with having a fixed mindset is that when we get stuck in proving mode, we are not resilient. We lose that ability to be agile, to be adaptable. And ultimately, guess what? It impacts your long-term performance. When we are stuck in this mode, we're trying to prove something over and over again. We're trying essentially to be perfect. And guess what? Nobody's perfect, right? So don't get me wrong though. I'm not saying that comparisons are always bad. Yeah. Some market research is always useful just to see what's out there and what other people are doing. But let's think about when we are in a growth mindset. Now, when you're in a growth mindset, your purpose flips. It changes a viewpoint, right? Your role now is to focus on improving yourself, getting better at something, not proving that you're already good, but getting better at something. The second thing you will notice when you switch to a growth mindset is that you're trying to develop skills, not demonstrate. Very, very different feel there. And finally, of course, while we are still looking at what's out there, we are more focused on comparing ourselves with who we were yesterday. Am I better today? Have I learned something new today? What have I done in order to overcome the challenge that I'm facing? And you begin to see that you like yourself a little better. So the story that you tell yourself is really, really important. I may not be good at this yet, but I will most definitely get better at it with a growth mindset. Again, you know what? This isn't some hocus pocus strategy that suddenly makes you better. There is no on-off switch that you can flip, right? But it is about finding the source of motivation, finding what motivates you to want to be better than you were yesterday. So a lot has been said about a growth mindset. And if you Google it, there are a gazillion articles that you could read. But I wanted to make sure that I set you up on the right path. And so I wanted to cover off 5 myths that we have actually uncovered. And it's extracted from a Harvard Business Review article co-written by Dr. Heidi Grant herself. So the first myth is that growth mindset is about making money and lots of it. I'm afraid that that is not the case because, for example, you could be working on your listening skills. That doesn't directly make you rich, but you'll be better and better at listening. So it's not about making money. Now, the other thing that we commonly hear is, oh, businesses must have a growth mindset. Unfortunately, businesses do not have minds. People do. So while businesses can't have a growth mindset, the people who run the business in the organization most definitely can. And that is what we call a growth mindset culture, right? One that supports innovation and creativity. The third one is interesting. A lot of people think, oh, I must put on my growth mindset superpower. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We're not talking about Marvel action heroes here. And growth mindset is definitely not a superpower like reading minds. It is not about limitless potential, but it is about the possibilities of potential. So let me give you an example here. Imagine at my age and being 5'1", no matter how hard I try, I will probably not make it to any sort of Olympic swimming team. However, if I practice regularly or every day, I am most confident that I can get better at swimming. Okay, all right, I hope you're still with me here. Now, the fourth myth that I'd like to bust for you today is that growth mindset is not something that either you have or you don't have. As human beings, we are always sometimes at our best selves and sometimes not feeling great. Yeah, so being human, you have these two things, right? Either you're good, feeling good, or not feeling so good, right? There's always that in our personal being. So, but when you can choose, when you are aware that you are flipping towards a fixed mindset and you have an opportunity to choose, the ask is choose to be in a growth mindset mode. Now, again, at this point, it's not always up to us, right? For example, if you're having a meeting with a really difficult client, for example, and the client is going on and not willing to listen to you and not giving you an opportunity to explain your ideas or share your thoughts. At that moment, it's probably going to be challenging for you to be practicing any sort of growth mindset attitudes or behaviors. But think about this. When you leave that meeting, when you stepped away from it, you can choose to wear your growth mindset hat and ask yourself, wow, that was a really tough meeting. What can I learn from it? What can I choose to take away and be better at and prepare better for my next meeting? And of course, finally, the last myth is the fact that we do have constraints. For example, there are only 24 hours a day, right? Can't have more than that. So if you have a manager that comes to you and says, hey, Elaine, can you please rush this report for me? And I have to say to my manager, look, I'm sorry, I can't finish this. I don't have enough time. But imagine if the manager then replies, hang on a second, that's not a very growth mindset approach you have. Well, unfortunately for that manager, I only have 24 hours a day. So the question then is, what is my choice? Is it to realistically work through what's important, what I should do, and what we can ask for help for, or sit there and complain and lament about my unfortunate situation? I suggest we choose a growth mindset always. So again, we are always either at a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. We're at our best, which is when we play to win, and we are not so good when we play to lose, right? So just remember that we toggle between these two options all the time, and it's always a choice that you can make. So why should you care? What has it got to do with the topic that we're referring to today, the future? How can I own it with just having a growth mindset? In her 20 plus years of research, Dr. Heidi Grant articulates that of all the tools, of all the methodologies, of all the motivational ideas out there, having a growth mindset is actually the most powerful motivation tool you can use to shape the way you respond to challenges and difficulty. Of course, she could be biased about her work, but having used the concept and experimented in our own teams across ASEAN, across the globe, I must say, I will agree with her on this. We have seen marvelous results. We've seen teams turn around and deliver really high quality, high performance work for our clients. We have seen leaders become the most inspirational leaders of our time, people we can look up to as role models. So it does work, but you need to put in some effort. At the point where you have a choice, you need to choose the right way to think. So what do I mean by this? What is the right way to think? Well, when you are in a fixed mindset, I can imagine that there will be no issues if everything was going smoothly for you, right? You're feeling good. There are no issues at work, no challenges for you to deal with. You feel smart, you feel empowered, and you feel confident. And that's really fantastic because you've made it, right? But if you were to be faced with a challenge, a disruptor of epic proportion, like COVID, for example, you'll begin to doubt yourself. Were the decisions I made the right ones? I want to prove my ability, but how come, I am where I am, and the thing that I used to do doesn't seem to work anymore? Well, guess what? This will trigger a spiral of performance anxiety. You begin to feel a little bit helpless and maybe try and avoid solving that problem because you're in a fixed mindset. You don't know what it is that you need to do. But that's not the scariest part. The scariest part is that when you are in this situation, your brain cells shrink, your memory shrinks, and it just gets from bad to worse. I can give you a great example here. Anybody ever taken an exam before? You know about exam anxiety. During the exam, in the examination hall, somehow, try as you might, nothing comes to mind. But when you leave it, when the exam is over, all the answers suddenly come flooding back into your memory. So my wish is for you to never have to encounter that as you are dealing with the challenges and disruptors that you need to work with. So the answer is consider approaching life with a growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, your going in position is that I need to improve. I need to learn something from this. So let me try something different. Suddenly, you will find that your ability is to focus on the future, to say, I'm not good at this yet, or this is currently a challenge, but I have a chance to try something different, adapt, and be agile. And here you can see that the mood and the mentality and the mindset actually shifts to a more resilient and adaptive response. Every challenge suddenly becomes an opportunity for you to grow and learn new things. So I guess the advice is when you feel stressed, when you feel negative emotions, the choice is, are you going to use it as motivation to do something for yourself, to work hard and to grow, or have exam anxiety? Now, if your option is the green bit, which is to grow and to motivate yourself to do better, I think we're all in a better place, don't you think? Now, let me give you another example of how this plays out at work. Every year in our organization, we do something called upward feedback for our leaders. And most of the time, leaders will wait anxiously and nervously to see what their teams have to say about them in the feedback report. So recently, we ran a campaign to encourage our leaders to view feedback as a gift. Only when people care enough about you will they want to give you the feedback you need to make the adjustments to your leadership capabilities. That, of course, requires a growth mindset. So in our briefing sessions, we tell our leaders, think about this as an opportunity for you to learn. Think about this as an opportunity for you to become more self-aware of your blind spots and do something different. So can you see that there are many, many benefits that you can derive from approaching life with a growth mindset? We've noted more creativity because you're always trying to do something different. We've noticed that people begin to think deeper and in a more holistic manner about the issues and challenges they're facing, because as you're trying to unpack it and trying to solve the problem, you generally have to ask more and more questions, right? And of course, because you're exploring the topic, you become more interested in it, become more interested in understanding what is the challenge or what is the situation or the point behind the issue that you are trying to solve. And as you become more interested, you also enjoy the process better. So you can actually have fun while you're solving problems. Now, as you're doing this and you're doing more research and trying or practicing something, of course, you become better at what you do. And finally, as you are sticking through the entire process of knowing you'll get better and better as you practice, you naturally develop grit and perseverance. And grit and perseverance is actually the secret to success. People are grittier when they stick to things and their focus gets better as well. So who gets to decide whether you have a growth mindset or not? Who is the key decision maker here? You, of course. As I've mentioned earlier, it's always a choice you make. Firstly, as an individual. So whether you're at work or at home, it is your choice. Firstly, to adopt a growth mindset. And because of what you're doing and how you feel and the results you're gaining is such enthusiastic and encouraging thing, people also want what you have. And when that happens, that is when you create a ripple effect through the organization. The other set of people that have a really big impact on whether or not organizations have adopt a growth mindset culture will be leaders. Leaders actually play a huge part in any organization and set the tone and role model, and therefore the culture then subtly shifts. Of course, it takes time. It takes time for anything good to happen, but it's always worth it. And why do I say that? Because if you imagine a situation at work or even at home where there isn't very much creativity and innovation and future forward thinking happening, you will generally find the 4 things that I've listed on the slide right here. Micromanagement, lack of trust. People don't like it when you're different. They will question you just because you don't think the way they do, right? And there's a lot of shortcuts that might be taken in order to prove that you're better or the best person at the job. Now, on the other hand, if we encourage people to choose to play to win or to choose to adopt a growth mindset and be at their best always, you'll notice the shift. People become more motivated, and with motivation comes engagement. With engagement comes better ways to work together and theme. It becomes healthier, and there's a lot more trust when people are dealing with each other. The other thing that results from this, of course, is creativity and innovation to solve the problems that our customers or our clients might have. And finally, of course, this is the birthplace of ethical decision making. Doesn't that sound good? Don't you actually want some of it now? So what can we do? What can we do as individuals and citizens of our organization? The first thing you must do is to work on yourself. You need to notice the way you think. Say that again. You need to notice the way you think and then shift the story that you're telling yourself. I'm only asking that you catch yourself when you begin to feel anxious, when you begin to feel threatened, when you have not so much confidence in your abilities. Catch yourself. And here are some ways that you can shift the way you think or shift the story that you're telling yourself. So when you feel nervous and you're thinking, I'm not good at this, Dr. Carol Dweck recommends that we add a yet to the end of our sentence. So immediately it changes your thinking of, oh, this is a dead end feeling to something of a possible situation. I am not good at this. Dead end. But if you said to yourself, hang on a second, let me add the word yet. I am not good at this yet. It's possible that I can be better at it. So what can I do to become better? What is the course that I need to take? And what is the new skill that I need to learn? Another way of looking at it, Dr. Heidi Grant tells herself, Heidi, it's not about being good, but it's about getting better. And guess what? After 20 years of working on this particular topic, she still uses this sometimes when she catches herself thinking in a not so great way. So how about you? What can you say to yourself? Personally, I have tried a few approaches and I've even used the word yet sometimes. But for me, when I'm not in such a good place, when I notice my stress levels rising, my current strategy is to pause, take a couple of deep breaths, and then ask myself, Elaine, what is your choice? What will you choose? So this is the trigger phrase that I use, and believe me, I use it often when I'm faced with disruptors and challenges in my daily life. So I wanted you to take a moment here to ask yourself that question. What is your trigger phrase? And then if you could do one thing for yourself, write down the couple of options that you have come up with. And after this session, why not revisit it and find the one that works best for you so that you can notice how you're thinking and shift the way you're thinking. Of course, a miracle will not occur and behavior shifts take time. But what this will do for you is it will help you to think of possibilities rather than feel that every situation you encounter is a dead end. And this is important because, frankly, do you know what are the disruptors that will happen tomorrow? We cannot predict how or when or what are the disruptors and challenges that will impact us. But knowing that you have a choice and knowing you have a way and approach to catch yourself will reduce the anxiety that you feel. And when anxiety is less, solutions appear in the horizon. And the more often you do this, the better you will get at it. Just like swimming and going to the gym, it's a muscle that you need to build. So the other important group of people that we talked about were leaders, right? Now, as you're working on yourself, maybe you are also a leader in a team or an organization, or maybe at university, you lead teams as well. Now, we all know that leaders have a profound impact on the way the team functions. A leader's behavior is contagious. And guess what? Research has shown that 33% of any team member's mental health has got to do with how a leader leads. And the mistake that most leaders make is that you always think that you need to show up flawless and perfect before you can gain the respect of people. However, I'd like to tell you now that you're absolutely wrong. In another separate research, we found that leaders who are more trusted are people who are authentic and can be vulnerable. What does that mean? It means that when you make a mistake, apologize. And then people will say, wow, it took a lot of courage for my leader to say that they made a mistake. I definitely respect this person more. And here are some other tips. Here are some other tips on the slide that you can see that you could also apply to yourself, right? For example, be vulnerable, encourage creativity by saying, hey, I'm going to try something new. I'm not sure if it works, but let's give it a go anyway. The fact is, when you say that, you open up and you give people the permission to try new things. And that's where we all need to be, right? So encourage them to keep going and wear your growth mindset badge publicly as leaders. So all this is great and fine. But honestly, why doesn't it always translate into results? Why doesn't it always become something useful and helpful? Why can't we immediately see the impact of what we're doing? Well, I did say that we have one strategy, but before I go to the strategy, I wanted to share with you a I tried but story. Have you ever met someone who comes to you and says, wow, this is my New Year resolution. I'm going to do a list of 10 things. And 6 months later, when you check in on them, they're like, yeah, but I didn't do it. Oh, I didn't meet this objective. Oh, yeah, no, but I didn't feel motivated at all. What happened? What happened to that Energizer bunny that was so motivated at the start of the year? Well, when people come to you and say, I want to lose weight by exercising more and eating less. How much is more and how much is less? 6 months later, they're like, yeah, I'm still at 5 kilos over. May I offer you a different point of view? We need to be specific. I will exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes and cut out rice from my dinner. Sounds more achievable now, doesn't it? So what are we talking about here? I often tell my team that being clear is being kind to the people you work with. But being clear is also about being kind to yourself. Muddy goals and muddy objectives will get you nowhere. And if you're a leader, it will get your team nowhere as well. So in the case of making the right choice to think with a growth mindset, what I'm saying here is that if we are not specific about the action we wish to take to be more growth mindset oriented, you will miss the opportunity altogether to become better at it. If you don't have a trigger phrase to use, when you find yourself in a stressful situation, your chances of being able to lift yourself out and take a step back might be less apparent. So my proposal to you for your consideration is to make specific if-then plans that force you to think with a growth mindset. I'll say that again. Make specific if-then plans that force you to think with a growth mindset. If I feel my stress levels rising, then I will pause and ask myself, Elaine, what is your choice? Or here are some other great ones that I picked up from my colleagues at EY. If I get an email that makes me angry, then I will wait 10 minutes before responding. Or if a member of my team is struggling, then I will share a story of how I personally struggled and overcame a similar challenge to encourage them. Another great one that I heard is, if I made a mistake, then I will apologize and learn from it. These are all great growth mindset oriented if-then statements. But it's hard to build new habits because most of us run on autopilot on a daily basis. You brush your teeth, autopilot. You drive to work, autopilot. Many things that we do are on autopilot. So we need to intentionally disrupt our routines in order to see impactful change. And again, the one thing I know is that being specific always works better than being vague and general about things. And this is what transformation is about. So, what about you? What are some of the if-then statements that you can make for yourself? You have nothing to lose. So I ask you, if anything, take away this opportunity to make some if-then statements for yourself. So we have come to the end of the presentation, and I'd like to leave you with another question for reflection. What if you listened less to your fears and showed up as your best self? Underlying growth mindset. What a wonderful place the world would actually be. At EY, our entire transformative leadership behaviors are built around the premise of everybody in the organization working at improving ourselves and applying the growth mindset to be the best version of ourselves And through that, of course, creating a ripple effect that will impact our teams and organizations across the globe. So today we have covered the fact that having a growth mindset is about, firstly, improving yourself. Secondly, it's about developing new skills and learning something new. And finally, of course, it is about being the better version of yourself when you started out the journey. It starts with you. You have the power to choose. And we also noted that leaders play an important role in organizations. So if you're a leader, you need to add that extra layer of role modeling to your daily approach, right? And finally, be patient with yourself. We're all work in progress. And if you're human, you will always face stresses and challenges on a regular basis. You will be disrupted. So my advice is to find your trigger phrase. Make specific goals with if then else statements. And as you listen to all the other speakers at this particular symposium and learn important strategies, please don't just take screenshots. Choose to do something with it. Choose to do something with that knowledge that will make you better. Choose to take action. And in the progress, choose to stay ahead of your tsunami by applying the growth mindset in everything that you do. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being able to share my passion with you. Stay safe and healthy always. Thank you.